Namaskar, welcome to Dynamic Economy and Economics. In this video, we will study relationship between cross and own elasticity of a compensated demand curve. Cross elasticity और own elasticity क्या होती है? Definition of own elasticity is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price of the same commodity. क्रॉस इलास्टिसिटी की परिभाषा क्या होती है? क्रॉस इलास्टिसिटी इज डिफाइंड एज परसेंटेज चेंज इन क्वांटिटी ऑफ वन कमोडिटी डिवाइडेड बाय परसेंटेज चेंज इन प्राइस ऑफ अदर कमोडिटी. इनका जो एक्सप्रेशन है वो हमने यहां पर शो किया है. दिस इज फार्मूला फॉर ओन इलास्टिसिटी dq1 dp1 p1 q1 and this is formula for cross elasticity dq2, that is quantity of other commodity, and p1 price of one commodity. ये क्रॉस इलास्टिसिटी का फार्मूला है. चूंकि हमें रिलेशनशिप कंपनसेटेड डिमांड के बीच देखनी है, देन वी हैव टू डिफरेंशिएट बिटवीन कंपनसेटेड एंड ऑर्डिनरी डिमांड कर्व. ऑर्डिनरी डिमांड कर्व क्या होता है और कंपनसेटेड डिमांड कर्व क्या होता है? एंड ऑर्डिनरी डिमांड कर्व इज ऑल्सो नोन एज मार्सेलियन डिमांड कर्व and compensated demand curve is also known as Hicksian demand curve. Marshallian demand curve is derived from price effect, whereas compensated demand curve is derived from substitution effect. हम इनको कैसे अलग करते हैं? It is shown in this diagram. This is initial budget line and this is initial equilibrium point. When price of commodity 1 falls, new budget line becomes this one and new equilibrium point is this one. So the movement from this quantity to this quantity is price effect. Compensated demand curve हम कैसे समझते हैं? Compensated demand curve के लिए हम केवल substitution effect को analyze करते हैं, income effect को छोड़ देते हैं. And for this we have to keep the indifference curve unchanged. A new budget line parallel to this one is drawn, this budget line. ये इसको यहाँ पर टच करती है. So the substitution effect in this case is movement from this to this. This is substitution effect and this whole is price effect. On the basis of this difference between price effect and substitution effect, we draw compensated demand curve and ordinary demand curve, जो इस फिगर में किया गया है. In this figure, this one is ordinary demand curve, that is Marshallian demand curve, and this is compensated demand curve or Hicksian demand curve. हम यहां से देखते हैं कि इनिशियल प्राइस ये डिमांड है. अगर प्राइस कम होता है तो मार्सेलियन डिमांड के केस में डिमांड यहां से यहां तक चली जाती है. दिस वन डिमांड हैज इंक्रीज, बट इन केस ऑफ कंपेंसेटेड डिमांड कर्व चेंज इन डिमांड इज रिलेटिवली लेस. सो this is new demand on the basis of substitution effect. We see that price effect is greater than substitution effect. That's why compensated demand curve is steeper than ordinary demand curve. Price effect is greater than substitution effect. So compensated demand curve is steeper than ordinary demand curve. It means that response of demand to a particular change in price will be relatively less in case of compensated demand and relatively high in case of ordinary demand. If price has changed from this point to this point, ordinary demand has increased from here to here, whereas compensated demand has increased from here to here. That's why this one is steeper and this is flatter. Now we have to analyze the relationship in compensated demand and compensated demand is drawn under the assumption that indifference curve is constant. There is no change in level of utility. Utility is constant. To get this relationship mathematically, we use this utility function. This is the utility function, in which Q1 and Q2 are two goods, and use level of utility. Total differential of this utility function gives us this expression. D is total change in utility. This is partial differentiation of the function with respect to Q1, and this is partial differentiation of the function with respect to Q2. dq1, dq2 are changes in Q1 and Q2 respectively. This expression can also be written as this, where these have been replaced respectively by margin utility of Q1 and margin utility of second one. Yes. Since along a particular indifference curve, total utility remains constant, so there is no change in utility, so du is equal to 0. We put this value in this expression and get this one. Since du becomes 0, this plus this is equal to 0. Changing the sides of these two, we get this one. mu1 dq1 is equal to minus mu2 dq2. Taking this to this side and this to this side, we get this one. Now, we know that in equilibrium, a ratio of marginal utilities or marginal rate of substitution equals price ratio of the two commodities. Here P1 is the price of commodity 1 and P2 is the price of commodity 2. So, we replace this by P1 upon P2 and this expression is found. dq2 divided by dq1. Now, taking this here and this here, this expression is found. P1 dq1 is equal to minus P2 dq2. Taking this to this side, we get this expression. P1 dq1 plus P2 dq2 is equal to 0. Now, multiplying this expression by this P1 into Q1 into Q2 divided by y Q1 Q2 dp1. This expression is multiplied by this one, means this is multiplied this and this is also multiplied by this. Now, separating this and this, we get P1 dq1 Q1 dp1. This is the same as this one. So, this becomes elasticity, own elasticity, and remaining P1, Q1, Q2, Q2 and Q2 cancel each other. So, P1, Q1 divided by Y. This is share of commodity 1 in total expenditure. Similarly, in this case, dq2 P1 and Q2 dp1. dq2 P1 and dp1 Q2. Same expression. So, this is cross elasticity of good 2 with respect to price of commodity 1. And the remaining Q1 cancel each other. We have here P2 Q2 divided by Y. So, this is share of commodity 2 in total expenditure. So, we get this expression. This is own elasticity and this is cross elasticity. Alpha 1 is share of commodity 1 in total expenditure and alpha 2 is share of commodity 2 in total expenditure. Now, if this one is less than 0, as is always the case, it is negative, then this one must be greater than 0. Because if this expression is negative, share can never be negative. If this one negative, this becomes a negative. So this must be negative, so that this sum total can be 0. This is the relationship between cross and on elasticity of a compensated demand curve. वीडियो पर अपनी राय दें, मन में कोई प्रश्न हो तो कमेंट के माध्यम से हम तक पहुंचाएं। वीडियो पसंद आया तो लाइक करें, शेयर करें, सब्सक्राइब करें। वीडियो देखने के लिए आपका धन्यवाद।